Valerie. Today we're going to continue with the second half of our lesson on academic writing and research, where we're going to talk about narrowing the focus of our research questions and finding a gap in the research. So let's go ahead and let's pick up where we left off in our last video. We're going to look at a few short, simple topic introductions, and then we're going to brainstorm some potential gaps in the research. So here, the author has not identified a gap, and we're going to look for one. So I want you to go ahead and you can pause the video and read through these 5 sample studies, and then think about how you might be able to find a gap in the literature. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the first one on remote learning and student engagement. It says, recent studies on remote learning have shown that digital tools increase student engagement. Many universities have adopted online platforms, and numerous investigations have demonstrated the benefits of flexible scheduling in improving academic performance. Okay, so we've talked here about what has been done. Remote learning, digital tools increase student engagement. Okay, well, we're not really talking specifically about what digital tools, but we know that there have been studies on digital tools and student engagement, and universities have adopted online platforms, and numerous investigations demonstrated the benefits of flexible scheduling in academic performance. Okay. So I would like to know, perhaps, if this is similar in a K to 12 environment. I've taught in a lot of remote teaching environments in K to 12. I'd like to know, perhaps, if the percentage of courses that a K to 12 student takes online, and I would want to narrow it further, I'd say a high school student takes online, if that is correlated with their performance on a particular standardized test. For example, if I was teaching in the state of Georgia, they have the Georgia Milestones test. I would want to know, okay, so does the amount of hours that you take in a virtual environment, does that directly relate to the learning outcomes that you enjoy on this standardized test? So that might be one gap in the research. We talked about universities. Let's explore it in a K to 12 context. Or let's talk about student engagement in a K to 12 environment. Climate change in coastal ecosystems. Several studies have documented the effects of climate change on coastal ecosystems, noting rising sea levels and increasing temperatures. Various conservation strategies have been implemented to protect these areas, and researchers have detailed the environmental impacts of climate-related changes. Well, we don't get a lot of information as to what type of details when they talk about environmental impacts. So I might want to know, do these conservation strategies have an impact on sea temperatures, on increasing ocean temperatures? Are local environmental changes, local conservation strategies, are they in any way linked to, for example, polar ice sheets and the situation at the South Pole? So these are all different things. And again, I'm just kind of coming up with these things off the top of my head, but I'm going to look for different areas that have been missed. And I'm going to say, how can I fit something into this? How can I find a gap here? And how can I insert my own ideas, my own study? Let's take a look at the third one. Social media use among teenagers. Research on social media use among teenagers has extensively described its influence on communication patterns and social networking. Many studies have focused on platform usage and general engagement behaviors, providing a broad overview of teen interactions online. Okay, well, I would like to know how extensive social media use or heavy social media use, and I would need to describe that in my study. I'd need to set parameters for what heavy usage is. I would want to know, how does heavy use affect communication patterns offline or communication behaviors offline? Is there a change when that heavy usage is reduced? Does that impact a person or a young person's communication style or communication patterns offline? So that would be interesting, I think. So let's talk then about, after we've found a gap, let's talk about developing a good research question. A research question needs to be focused, needs to be clear, it needs to be researchable. We have to be able to gather the data to answer the question. And as we talked about in our last video, it can't be too broad and it can't be too narrow. So here I've got a very broad research question. How does social media affect teenagers? Oh, you go any one of a number of ways with this. So you're not going to get, it's not researchable. You're not going to find data because it's just far too broad. Here it says, how does Instagram use influence body image perception among teenage girls? Okay, so that's a lot more focused. So let's take a look at some very broad research questions and see how we can narrow these. So again, if you want, you can pause the video here and work through each of these individually. I'm going to go over a few with you here. We talked about social media impact, remote learning. What's the impact of remote learning on students? I want to know perhaps what is the impact of remote learning in student engagement in a 12th grade economics class, something like that. Climate change and ecosystems. How does climate change affect coastal ecosystems? Climate change is very broad, so I might want to know how do rising sea temperatures impact the prevalence of the piping plover on Long Island beaches? So that would be far more focused. AI in healthcare? What are the effects of artificial intelligence in healthcare? Wow, that's very, very broad. I want to know perhaps what are patient perceptions of artificial intelligence use in colon cancer diagnosis? Technology and education. How does technology influence education? Wow, that's again very, very broad. I might that's really broad. I might tie something to policy decisions and again, education, we want to look at learning outcomes. I might say something, uh, how does access to technology impact impact learning outcomes in inner city African American communities? That would be something that I think is researchable. Work-life balance. What's the role of work-life balance on employee productivity? Again, this is broad. It's not quite as broad as some of the other questions, but it's still very broad. I might say, um, employee productivity. This becomes first. I think we're going to have to focus this to a particular sector. Maybe we're going to talk about client retention in the financial services sector. I think that would be a more focused look at productivity as opposed to just employee productivity. Um, how do hybrid working arrangements impact client retention in the financial services sector? I think that would be more focused. And the last two on urban green spaces and renewable energy, I'll let you work through, but that's really where we want to start going. We want to take these broad topics and we want to narrow them. We want to look at, well, what's the population that we're really interested in, right? Because we're really just investigating a small piece, right? We're not trying to solve a massive problem or answer a huge question like, how does technology influence education? That's huge. We want to look at a very small focus section, and we're going to make a contribution. And it's up to our colleagues to make contributions as well. And together, we all help one another to answer those questions. So I want you to apply what you've learned. We talked in our last video about the three moves in the CARS process. Think about what you're researching and start out by establishing a territory. You can use one sentence. I think you probably need at least one or two for this. Um, then identify your niche, right? What's missing? Few studies have examined what remains unexplored. And then how are you going to occupy that niche? So let's go ahead and go to our skills lab. So we're talking about subject-verb agreement. Remember, when we talk about subject-verb agreement, we're talking about the subject and the verb agreeing in number. So for collective nouns, we would say the team is winning the tournament, not the team are winning the tournament. Data is plural, and that's something that many people make a mistake with. The data shows significant trends, not the data shows, the data show. And indefinite pronouns. Everyone needs his or her own copy. Not everyone needs their own copy. So let's practice this, okay? And this worksheet is available in my resource, which is available in my Teachers Pay Teachers store. We'll go through the first few. The data shows a steady increase in student participation over time. The data show. The data show a steady increase. Number two, each of the studies present a different view. Each of the studies presents a different view. The research team are currently conducting interviews with patients. The research team is currently conducting. Everyone on the committee have reviewed the draft. Everyone on the committee has reviewed the draft. And the last one, I'm going to let you do the others on your own. The findings of this study suggests a connection between diet and mood. The findings of this study suggest. All right, so thank you so much for joining me for another lesson on academic writing and research. And please remember to like, subscribe, and comment on the video, and you'll get all my academic writing and research lessons. And I'll see you in our next video.